This one happened to my father. Not exactly paranormal, but 100% scary. Be my dad, back in the 1980s. Get into a car accident. Multiple broken bones. Fucked up spine. He's got scoliosis now. Skull fracture. Ruptured lung. Another organ was fucked up. I can't remember exactly which one it was. He has to go under the knife. Doctors trying to save him. Looks like he isn't gonna make it. Apparently, he was paralyzed, but he could still hear them, but not see them. Doctors start talking about organ transplant for the boss. Doctors begin to cut him open while he is conscious but paralyzed. One doctor begins to argue that this man could easily be saved, / what they are doing is wrong. Argument ensues. Second time this month. Boss needs another. You fucking do it then. Gets sewn back up. Lives. He says he was slipping in and out of consciousness through the whole thing. Vehemently states they were trying to take his organs on behalf of the boss while he was conscious. Needless to say, he is paranoid about surgery. You are right. It is 100% spooky. Speaking of organ-related memes, some children's hospital not far away from me, for children with serious illnesses and problems that they are unlikely to survive. For decades, grieving parents make accusations that the kids are basically being killed for their organs, and the ones who die naturally are having their organs taken from them. Hospital completely denies this and says the high death rate is because the children have serious issues, and that's why they are there in the first place. About 15 years ago, one set of parents brings this all up again because they requested the body to bury, but instead, the hospital cremated the body without their consent and just gave them an urn full of ashes. They explain they started the processes a few years earlier because it was too heartbreaking for their families to receive the full bodies, and it was easier if they were cremated beforehand. But the parents claim it's so that there is no proof that any of the organs were taken. Eventually, they did get in touch with other parents who did receive bodies. It wasn't like the bodies were in a body bag. They were already in sealed coffins, ready to be buried when they gave them to the parents. More than a few have the coffins exhumed and opened. Totally empty, except for some baby clothes and scrap metal to act as weight. No sign of any body at all, no bones or anything. One family empties their urn and finds unironic cigarette butts among the ash. Whole place gets raided and people start getting sentenced. One of the top doctors / surgeons who's been there like 30 plus years comes clean and admits they took the organs. Refuses to answer if any of the kids were murdered. Refuses to answer what they did with the organs. Turns out, they did not even have a crematorium. Dig up the grounds, and there is literally thousands of children's bodies. Doctor / surgeon agrees to explain everything that happened in return for a sentence reduction afterwards. CPS agrees. Hangs himself 2 days later. I'm so glad you reminded me of my great experiences in an intensive ward a couple years back. Saw the shit firsthand. Recovering from a day. Nighttime. 4 more people in our room, all hooked up to machines. I don't know if it's instinct, but all of a sudden, my heart started pounding like something was after me. Then could make out footsteps from the hall. Paranoid as fuck for some reason. Nurse walks in, slowly scans the room. Pretend to be asleep. Heart monitor over 9,000. Walks to the other end of the room. An elderly lady, completely senile. The whole waking day before, she would just laugh in the most horrific manner possible, almost like she was possessed. Senile people are fun in that way. Kept alive via oxygen support, which would make her giggle even more. Okay, tangent over. Back to original story. The nurse walks over to her bedside. Few seconds pass by. All of a sudden, her heart monitor stops. She unhooks her life support systems, wheels her out of the room. My heart is pounding now, harder than it ever has before. Think what the fuck. Always felt something sinister about hospitals. Realize all of my fears had a basis. Half an hour passes by. I drift back to sleep. They wake me before dawn and move me to another room because, I don't know. Fuck. I still get emotional when I think about that. Do yourself a favor and don't put these pieces together. Hospitals, willful cattle, organs, blood rituals, and well, basically, good old human sadism. You will never set foot in a hospital again. Ignorance is bliss, buddy. My family and I lived in a small town in Colorado that was founded during the cattle boom in the 1880s. We spent 5 or 6 years living in one of the oldest homes in town, and a lot of strange shit happened. Nothing overly spooky, just the usual haunted house fare with objects moving when you turned your back, etc. One thing that was a recurring trend, however, was that my brother and I would always hear footsteps coming up the stairs at night, then walking down the hallway. The sound would always stop right outside of our doorway. The thing was, we could look across the hall and see into our parents' room. They usually kept their door open and their bed was right in front of it, so you could easily see them sleeping. There was a large bathroom next to our bedroom, and we would often wake up to the shower door opening and closing by itself over and over. The door was old and shitty, made from heavy glass, and was actually pretty hard to open without really jerking on it. There is no way a draft, open window, etc. could have caused it. We brought this up to our parents more than once, who always dismissed it. Though years later, my mom told me that both she and my stepfather heard the footsteps/door thing before as well, and that my stepfather had supposedly seen an apparition of a woman standing at the foot of my brother and I's bed more than once. They never mentioned it because they did not want to frighten us. We ended up moving out as soon as we had money to do so. Come to find out later, the upstairs bathroom had originally been another bedroom. The people who owned it before us remodeled it, and a woman died in there. My parents rented the place out for another 5 years or so after we moved out, and all of the renters would eventually end up asking questions about it, some more subtly than others, but it was obvious they had seen or heard shit that weirded them out. One couple flat out asked about the woman and the shower door. We would hear footsteps in the attic a lot as well, and one time, one of my asshole friends grabbed a broom and started thumping it on the ceiling. The footsteps started to mimic the thumps. He would tap once, we would hear a tap upstairs. He would tap twice, 2 taps, etc. This went on for about 5 minutes before something stomped really hard. At the time, it seemed like it shook the entire house, but maybe that's my memory exaggerating it. It was loud enough and seemed angry enough that we both ran outside and sat on the porch for 3 hours, waiting for my parents to get home. Another thing I recalled, years later, was that when my parents first took me over there to look at the house before we bought it, I was only 8 or 9 and being pissy, so I stayed in the car. I remember seeing an old woman watching me through the window of the bathroom. Later, when I went inside and met the family, and noticed the old woman was not present, but did not think much of it. One final thing, but not really paranormal. The people who had lived there before the folks we bought it from were supposedly really fucking weird and into occult shit. Never really found any evidence of that, but the root cellar had a ton of jarred/pickled shit in it. Vegetables and meat, but some of it was, we couldn't really tell. We found a jar full of some kind of eyeballs, probably pig I guess, as well as jars with other internal organs we could not identify, and one that looked like it was full of fingers. They did not have fingernails, so they were not human, but it was fucking creepy. Most of it had been down there for so long, it had all kind of turned into mush. It was nasty. Be me, 4-ish years old. Sister is 4 years older. Frequently dissected small animals she found in front of me. Would threaten me violently if I tried to leave. Carefully remove their teeny tiny organs and lay them beside the corpses. Used to hold shrimp very close to my face and tell me if I tried harder, I could have saved them, and that they know it's all my fault they died, then ate them cheerfully. I have not eaten meat in 9 years. Shoved silverware up my ass, tongue-kissed me for the pure pleasure of seeing me cry. Convinced me I was born to be a man, and that it was a large conspiracy, keeping me believing I was female so they could laugh at me. Convinced me I murdered our mutual friend. Covered herself in ketchup and hid in the closet. Told me it was coming for me next. Hid under my bed for hours, so that she could freak the shit out of me once I started falling asleep. Shoved fucking pins through her fingertips because it made me cry in abject fear. Convinced me into an eating disorder at age 6. Told me I was morbidly obese. I was severely underweight for most of my life. Placed her porcelain dolls so they would be facing me when I woke up. Convinced me to put salt on a slug. Then ran to my mom and told her I was a sociopath. Was amused by my inconsolable weeping and having hurt an animal. She grew up to be your standard popular girl. I grew up in Telefomin, a highland town of Sandown province in Papua New Guinea. My father was a Christian missionary, I won't say which. In the 90s, the tradition of cannibalism was considered extinguished by the central government, but in reality, it continued in the more backward religions. I always wondered why, in the summer, there was so much activity at the local airport. Wealthy tourists, mostly Asian and Australian men, came in their private jets. It was strange, because there was nothing to see or do. All the attractions, like the Mount Hagen show and the beaches, etc., were taking place elsewhere. One night, as my father and I drove down from a quaint village in the mountains, we stopped by a neat bungalow where many costly cars were parked. We peeked through the window, and I will always remember what we saw. 30 to 50 naked men seated around a large, round table in the center of which were placed several heads, slices of flesh, and internal organs. Each man had a plate of raw meat. We left quietly. I was beyond tears and started hyperventilating minutes later. My father refused to talk about it to me, but I did hear him argue with my mother and send angry phone calls. It's only several years after his death, 2 years ago, that my mother explained what had happened. My father had immediately contacted the local police, who arrested him and interrogated him. They called his superiors, who warned him not to say anything about what he saw. My father had tried to contact local news agencies to no avail. My father's superiors threatened my father and sent us all to the Amazonian hinterlands of Ecuador, where work and alcohol killed my father 2 years ago. Now, my mother has come to live with me and friends, and I am trying to forget everything. My mother burnt all the information my father had gathered, all the interviews he had had with Indonesian and Filipino boat people from which the victims of the meat market were chosen, all the articles, everything. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. I have a story announce. Not ghosts, but I still cannot explain it to this day. Work at a pizza joint with my bro Jose. We like to go to gym after we close the store, pretty late at night most of the time, around 1 to 3 a.m. Our schedule on work nights is close store, drive to my place, drive to his place, then go to the gym. One night as we're leaving my house to get to his so he can change, something about the road that we're on just feels wrong, like it was too long or time was just crawling by. No comment at that point, just decided I'd keep driving, and we'd be on our way to the gym in no time at all. Get to his house no problem, get water, get to pet his dog for a second. Hit the road in my Honda Civic, around 1:40 a.m. I want to say, not too late for us. Pull from his driveway, pretty much in a woods, and make a distinct turn right to get us on the road that will lead us to the gym. Driving no big deal, shit is casual. But we end up on the opposite side of the road, at its other entrance. This shit is not possible. Drove past the exact shit we always do on the first road to gym. Same yield sign, same shitty billboard. I throw the car into park and look over at Jose. He looks exactly how I feel, just confused into a state of fucking shock. Literally get out of my car and look around, genuinely at a loss. Hadn't ever felt adrenaline like this before. This was not being mildly lost or getting turned around. Slump back into the car and just sit there for a few, trying my fucking hardest to rationalize what had just happened. Eventually, hit an illegal U-turn and drive to the gym. No more temporal fuckery involved. Went gym with him for like another 2 weeks, and then our friendship kind of fell apart. We both left the pizza place. Just, shit felt way too weird, man. First ever post. Wanted to get this off my chest. Happened a year ago now, I want to say. Me again. Same house and turnaround, the same time of night. This one is a little different. Another night, around 2 to 3 a.m. Sat at computer, feeling tired, but really invested in whatever I was doing. One of my feet is resting against the baseboard of the wall behind my desk. Feel some heavy movement and hear a heavy thud. Wall is an exterior wall. Around where my desk is a gate between the front and backyard. Have outdoor cats that usually will jump that fence when they come home. Realized that was way too violent to be one of the cats, even the fat one. Stand up, grab pistol I keep nearby because it's not a great neighborhood. Walk to rear door, open it, and wait for eyes to adjust since it is pretty dark. See silhouette of something about 10 or so feet away. Can't make out anything more than the general shape. Humanoid, but in a strange pose, like it's down on all fours, but is holding its ass in the air. Long body with long and skinny limbs. Fucking what? .gif. Back into house with my pistol still raised and staring at it. Hasn't moved at all since I noticed it. Door shuts as I get the light on. Throw the door open again, and nothing. What? Go back inside and wake my dad. Tell him what I saw. Man brings out his .45 and we investigate. Surprised he took it as seriously as he did. Check the gate I'd heard. Locked and otherwise normal. Go around to other side and check that gate. It's wide fucking open. Shut it and make sure it's locked. Go inside. No sleep from me that night. It's been nearly a decade since that happened, and I have not been able to reasonably justify what that thing was. Mostly because of how tall it would have been if it wasn't hunched over the way that it was. Its ass was damn near at my chest level. Spooky ghost out there, trying to throw ass. I've got a couple more. Appreciate screen capping my guy. The girl I used to date had weird shit happen in her house too. I was 17 when this one happened. Hanging out at home on a Friday night, early fall of 2014. Get a phone call around 8:30 to 9 p.m. It's my girlfriend. Answer, expecting her to invite me over for drinks or smoke, but instead, she is frantically chattering that I need to get down there. Grab the essentials, cigarettes, pocket knife, etc., and start walking. Feel strange for most of the walk. Not so much like worry or anxiety about the call, but dread. I remember that very clearly. Walk takes about 10 minutes, chain smoking the whole time because of the weird feeling. Girlfriend and a friend / housemate are sitting in the kitchen. They've busted into my GF mom's vodka. She wasn't home. I ask them what's going on, and they both start chattering, almost talking over each other. GF was in her room, studying a bit with some music, nothing unusual for her, when the room got very cold suddenly. She got up to grab a jacket so she could keep up with what she was doing before checking the thermostat. As she gets up and turns around, she sees what she describes as a bright white, sort of transparent haze come into her room from the hallway and up onto her closet door super fast. It apparently hovered there for a little bit before disappearing into her closet. She was already kind of spooked by this, but then she heard what sounded like a male voice, whispering or muttering from inside her closet. She numbed out and ran to her friend's room, trying to explain what had just happened. Friend gets spooked, but is still hesitant. At this point in the retelling, her friend quiets down. She's just staring at the table. GF tells me that while they were talking about what she could have seen was, they hear a muffled laugh from the area around her room, like manic laughter. Following the laughter, the light in the friend's room explodes. Literally fucking explodes. They bolt out, go outside for a while to collect themselves and smoke. Claim to have heard some more noises from inside. Thuds here and there, but it calmed down after a while, and they went in to sit and grab a drink to calm down. I'm sat there, fairly spooked myself. They explained they called me because at this point, I had some experiences with spooks and that I could take my GF with me to my place. I agreed to tag along, as long as they grabbed their things after a shot of vodka for courage. We stay grouped up, since they do not feel safe alone. Go to friend's room first, since it is closer. Walk in, with flashlight apps on. See the broken bits of light bulb on the floor. The room is a lot colder than the kitchen. Hold my light while she packs her things. Feel tense, but I'm still trying to rationalize things. Hear a thud from the adjacent wall, the wall between their rooms, and everyone jumps a little. Friend picks up the pace, throwing clothes and essentials into a bag, and we scoot back out into the kitchen for another shot. Go to GF's room. It's super cold, but the lights are still on. She starts to pack. I'm helping her pack things to pick up the pace, occasionally glancing towards the closet because I feel like I'm being watched. As we're finishing up, a loud crash comes from inside the closet. I pull my phone out and shine my flashlight inside. One of the wall-mounted shelves had collapsed. Finish packing and scoot outside, lock up and hang out for a bit, waiting for friend's ride to pick her up. GF and I start walking home, smoking and talking a bit. We're still feeling pretty tense. Any noise around us made us jump. Swear that we see things in the reflections of windows. Get home. Explain situation to my parents. They say it's fine if she stays for a while. She stayed for the weekend. Had to call her mom, who had been working late that night. We'll continue with some more details. She'll be last post for the story, then I'm going to take a break for a little while. Sunday rolls around. Spent the weekend hanging out, and just trying to take our minds off of the spooky shit. Decide it's probably for the best for her to head home, since her mom was going to be there. Walk over in the early evening, feeling a bit anxious, but otherwise enjoying the fall weather. We get there, and her mom is hanging out at the table, smoking and messing with her phone. She tells us that she had not seen or heard anything when she got home that night, but she did not doubt what GF had told her. Explains that the house was owned by her brother prior to her. That's how she ended up owning it. Brother was troubled and struggled with mental illness and drug addiction. He was always getting worse as time went on. He would roam around the house, breaking shit and throwing fits as he did so. He lived alone most of the time, except for the few times he had roommates. He hit a breaking point, and in one of his fits, he took his own life in the closet of GF's bedroom. One of the roommates said he was just laughing and then stopped. They found him a day later, when someone finally opted to check in on him, since he was usually doing something when he wasn't having an episode. GF and I hung around past nightfall. Nothing spooky happened, so she opted to stay home. Besides a few small things, nothing spooky happened in that house for as long as I dated her. Sure, I don't feel like sleeping tonight anyways. Greentexting to shorten it some. Be around November of last year, Washington State. New to the area, like the woods, so a few friends of mine there that are huge in a woods fiends decide to take me out into a secluded as hell spot. What the hell, I'll do it. Need some time away from work. Get the weekend off, pack my bag, clean the rifle, and head over to friend's house. End up about 25 or 35 miles away from the Canadian border in this forest that just goes on forever. I am really digging it, because my home state does not have shit like this. There's 6 of us and 2 dogs, a Labrador and a Rottweiler. Each person also has either a hunting rifle or shotgun with a handgun, except for me. Park cars on this tiny-ass game warden or border patrol dirt road, and hike about 4 miles into the woods. By this time, it's already starting to get a little dark, so we decide to build a fire right off so we can set up tents. 2 of the group and 1 of the dogs go out to gather wood, while the rest of us start setting up the tent. One of those huge sodding 6 to 8 person ones. November gets cold up there. Tent set up in about 15 minutes. The trio still aren't back yet. What the fuck? Must be fucking lol. So we just say screw it and start one from some branches from around the site. Start hearing crashing noises headed our way, like someone running their asses off. The two guys come barreling through, wide-eyed as fuck. The dog ain't nowhere to be seen. They start yammering on about seeing one of the other guys out in the woods acting weird, so they started trying to get close. Every time they get close though, he would move away. Said at one point he disappeared, then popped up not 10 feet behind them. Also mentioned a really bad rotten meat and spoiled milk smell popping up around then. Tried asking what was up, no answer. Then apparently, he just took off, sprinting like Usain Bolt into the woods. Dog takes off after him, barking its head off. The two dudes take off after the dog. Lose both the guy and the dog pretty soon, and the smell starts disappearing as well. Far off, hear a weird screeching, followed by a really loud dog's yelp. Then the smell comes back with a vengeance. This time, with what they described as mad giggling. They nope the fuck out of there and back to the camp. They get really pissed at the dude. All of us that were there vouch for the guy, so pretty soon we are all weirded out, but I think it's a really fucked up joke. I say as much and I get yelled at, then have, well, where the fuck is the dog then, tossed at me. Fuck, good point. At this point though, the sun was already well on its way down, so we build the fire up and bring out some Coleman lanterns as well. All of us are huddled around the fire, eating MREs, and the guns are at hand. About 15 minutes after dark, the remaining dog, the Rottweiler, kinda perks up and starts growling, and I mean that really fucking aggressive growl. Smell pops up, and the guys were not wrong about the smell. I have smelled rotten deer carcasses that smelled fresher. Weird groanings start up, and you can hear branches and leaves crackling out around the perimeter of our camp. Noping intensifies all around. The dog is going ballistic, so one of the guys with a shotgun, let's call him Greg, stands up and fires off 3 rounds of buckshot into the woods. This hellacious scream comes out of the woods and starts moving away from us fast as hell, and the smell goes as well. We wait for about an hour, then decide to try and get some sleep with 2 people on guard at all times. First watches me and another of the guys, Victor. The dog is chilling around the fire as well. 2 hours up, nothing. Wake up Greg and Tom for their turn. Asleep for a little, then wake up to that smell and Greg yelling his head off. So we get up and head outside. Greg is looking around the edge of the woods with a spotlight and calling out Tom's name. Ask what happened. They'd been sitting there when they heard one of the guys from earlier calling out from the woods. The dog started growling and rushed the spot, and Tom followed after. Dog went through some bushes and he'd lost him, so Tom followed him into the woods. Greg had been yelling for him when he heard Tom begin to say something before he was cut off. Shit, can't leave him out there, so we all put on some clothes, grab a flashlight or spot for each person, and our guns, and head out. By this time the smell was everywhere, and it was making most of us rather nauseous. But we kept going because we wanted to find Tom. Find some of his tracks, but lose the trail when they just stop. Literally no other footprints after a while, and none leading back the way he'd come. One of the guys at the back is shining his light around, kinda stops and makes an oh shit noise, then starts yelling. You fucking dick. We've been worried sick about you. Rest of group walks over to look, and there is Tom, standing a good 20 feet away, but he's standing all wrong. You okay, buddy? You need some help? Just stands there deadpan, then slowly nods yes. A few of us walk over and put an arm around his shoulders to kinda support him. Notice that he reeks. What the fuck, dude? We haven't even been out here for a full day, lol. Laughs abound, except from him. Think nothing of it, except worry that maybe he fell and hit his head. Back at camp, try and lay him down, but he just refuses to, so we let him stay outside at the fire. A couple of us go to sleep, but Greg, Vic, and I decide to stay up and keep an eye on Tom. Watching him, he does a weird jerk/muscle spasm thing every now and then. Creepy shit, but think it might be something serious. He is mostly quiet, slow to respond to things, until it comes to food. We give him an MRE to eat, and he only eats the meat out of them. Shrug it off as whatever. Then he gets up and starts moving around all jerky-like, looking towards the woods. He asks us if we want to come into the woods with him for firewood. Besides the fact that it's pitch black outside, besides the fire and the huge stack of firewood we collected on the way back, not all that weird. Jerks something like a shrug before walking weirdly into the woods. At this point we are on guard and do not try to stop him. Greg gets up a few minutes later to step into the tent for something, so I'm outside with Vic when the smell hits my nose like a ton of bricks and I gag hard. Then I start hearing gibbering and giggling. I have never been more freaked out in my life, and you can tell that Vic is feeling the same way. Greg comes out in time to hear it really well, then goes inside to wake everyone up. He freezes at the tent flap, then starts cursing, which wakes everyone up. Dunno why he's cussing, but it's working. When they're all up and awake, he counts everyone, and you can see him turn white. "What's up, dude?" Apparently, while he was inside, he did a quick body count, and there was 4 bodies inside. Someone or something had been chilling in our motherfucking tent without us realizing it had gotten in. Shit bricks and shit them hard. Then everyone starts asking where Tom is. At this time, the gibbering gets louder, and you can hear a bunch of shit moving through the woods. We hear Tom's voice calling at us from the woods to come and help him, but it's all off key, and every now and then he would start giggling. We build the fire up and sit around it with all the lanterns on full, weapons at hand until the sun starts coming up. Soon as it's up enough to see, we put the fire out, pack our stuff, and make for the vehicles. On the path back, we find the 2 dogs, one impaled on a snapped pine, the other one with its neck snapped and twisted around. We start hearing the giggling, and then the smell returns, so we start noping hard back for the car. We get there, and there are scratches all over them. Most of the windows are smashed out, and the seats are ripped to shreds. Whatever. That shit ain't important. Just need these babies to run. Toss keys into ignition and hear the sweet glorious sound of an internal combustion engine start up. Toss shit in, get in, and we speed out of there. Don't talk about it for a few months, and most of us don't even admit it happened. One of the guys with us told me later that he'd seen Tom at the edge of the woods, staring at us as we left, with this creepy fucking grin on his face. I believe him, and I know that I'll never go camping that far away again without a lot more people than 6. That was my first run-in with skinwalkers. The second one is shorter, but I'm tired and I need sleep for work. I will share tomorrow night. Until then.